Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another EVE Online video. Now, it is a very windy day here in Belfast, so if you do hear that in the background, I do apologise for that. So, I was going to do this in two separate videos, because in my last video, I talked about how I wanted to try out the solo nomad life, where I was going and just getting lost in wormholes and stuff like that. So the whole idea was that I was going to do that for a week, see what happens, and I was only going to leave wormholes for one of two reasons: death, or I had a big time with loot and I was floating about with an awful lot of money. I would find the nearest either high-sec, low-sec station. I would drop everything off, my second account would then come and pick it up, and I would jump back into a wormhole. That was the only two reasons why I decided that I would be leaving those wormholes. And the whole process was to get me used to wormholes, being in wormholes, really refining, saving bookmarks, jumping to and from things, getting in and getting out undetected. And to be honest, I was getting in with the express thought in mind of, I'm not using any websites to track where I am. I don't want to be able to find a way back. Now, I was saving wormholes of where I was coming from, so technically in that regard, in the bookmarks, I did have some form of chain, but the only reason why I was marking where I was coming from is so that I didn't go back into it whenever I had left that wormhole, because in my thoughts was, as soon as I leave this wormhole, I'm not going back to it, because I've left it because either there's nothing there, or all of the data and relic sites have been done, I've got the value out of that wormhole, and I am moving on. Okay, so that's the only reason why I saved the bookmarks of where I came from, is so that I knew, because there was a lot of wormholes that I was getting into that had multiple wormhole exits. There was one, I believe, that had 4 wormhole exits in it, and I didn't want to go back to the ones that I had, even if it was wasting 30 seconds. I didn't want to do it. So the whole idea was save that bookmark of where I came from, so I knew what one not to go into. Simple, right? Other than that, I was not tracking where I was going. I was not using any maps to map out where I've been and where wormholes were leading. None of that. The whole idea was to pretty much get lost in wormholes and just see how much money I could get over a week. There was a few things that I did not count on whenever it came to this, and it was definitely a learning lesson for me, because whenever I was getting into wormhole, I was like, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to do some exploring. I was in a buzzard to begin with, so I was in a buzzard to begin with, and I was like, right, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to do some data relic sites, and we're going to get some money, and we're going to explore wormholes. That was great. That's not exactly hard worked out though, and we will get into that. So first things first, we were fitting the buzzard out and we jumped into a wormhole. Okay, it was a typical buzzard that I would use just on a normal daily basis. Basically, there was nothing special about this buzzard. And the buzzard itself costs about 40-50 million, I believe, in and around that. So nothing major. If it was lost, it was lost. Simple. So we jumped into the wormholes, and going into the wormhole, I was like, right, unless I die or get some amazing loot, this is the last time that I leave, or this is the last time I'm in high-sec for at least another week, because that was the time frame that I was giving myself, was a week. So we jumped in, we were doing our things, we were scanning down wormholes. Now, it did start quite late at night, and I had to be up early the next morning for work and stuff, so I couldn't spend an awful lot of time on the first night. Okay, so the first night, I, getting in, scanning down, and I believe I was in a C3 wormhole. I scanned everything down, there wasn't really much to do. The first wormhole wasn't a C3. The first wormhole, there was basically nothing in it. Went into the next one, it was a C3. Scanned everything down, there was nothing really much to do in it. So I got one data and relic site, I believe. I yeah, I believe that I got some data relic sites, but pretty much time was coming up on me, and I was like, right, I need to go because I need to go to bed. So I logged off. Now this was the first time I had ever willingly logged off in space. I've logged off in space before, either due to getting internet cut off or really bad timing with the downtime reset. But this was the first time that I was willingly doing a safe log off in space. So, not gonna lie, I knew that my ship would be safe and I would be safe and everything would be fine. Not gonna lie though, the next day after logging back in, I was like, I don't know how I felt about that because it was weird. Okay, so next day, logged in. Well, it was actually the next night, but logged in, and I was still in that same 3 that I had logged off on, of course. Just scanned anything down just to make sure there was if there was any new sites that popped up, any new data or relic sites that popped up, and then it was time to move on. Leaving the C3, I had like 43 million ISK on board, so I was pretty happy with that. Decided to move on and went into a C4, I believe it was. Fully scanned everything down, and realistically there was nothing. There was a few wormholes, there was combat sites and stuff. There was gas sites, which felt like a crime to leave the gas sites, but I did not have anything to huff that gas, and I was not going to break the plan of going back and getting a gas site or getting a gas ship and coming back. I was not going to do that. That was not the point of that. Fully scanned down the C4, there was nothing for me in it. I'm not saying that the C4 was empty, I'm just saying there was nothing for me personally, because I was here for like data and relic sites and potentially fucking about with people that are living in a wormhole, but there was nothing for me. So we left the C4 and went to a C6. We were in the C6, we were doing some scanning. By this stage, after fully scanning down the C6 and stuff, I came across a data site, I believe it was, a data site that was guarded. Now there was one container that was significantly far away from everything else. And I was like, maybe I could go up, quickly lock onto it, hack it, and warp out before the rats get close to me. Completely forgetting about that they had sentry turrets there, which have insane range, and I was killed. Now this was a learning lesson for me. Maybe not in the way that you would think, right? Because maybe you're thinking, right, buzzards can't stay up to sentry turrets, and you'd be correct. But if you've ever flown a buzzard, you would know that it can't anyway. So that's not the learning lesson here. The learning lesson was that by this stage, I had been in a wormhole for 2 full nights. This was coming to the end of the second night. I'd been in a wormhole for 2 full nights. I was doing data sites, I was doing relic sites, I was trying to get a few things. And one of the main things was that across the span of these 2 nights, by this stage, I probably about 8 or 9 hours into wormholes. And I had not seen a single person. Whether that even be someone who is using wormholes to go from null-sec to high-sec to sell stuff, whether that was people living in a wormhole or day tripping in a wormhole, I did not see a single person. And that really got me to a point where I was letting my guard down a little too much. Granted, I was still doing my D-scan, I was still, cloaked up and warping from bookmark to bookmark, making save points and doing all the stuff that I should be doing, but I was still letting my guard down a wee bit too much. I got to the stage where when I was doing data and relic sites, I was taking my time, because my relic analyzer's only at T1, so I'm waiting on T2 getting done. It'll be done here very soon, but I was taking my time doing it. I was not cloaked up as much as I normally was because I wasn't seeing anyone, so I was letting my guard down. And because I was letting my guard down, I was starting making silly mistakes. One of them being, let's try to outsmart some rats in a wormhole, in a C6 wormhole of all things. So that was obviously not great. That led me to maybe make a decision that I shouldn't have made. I went and I fitted out a Tengu, and I was like, right, maybe if I can do like a combat exploration Tengu, that would sort some things out. It did not, because I fitted out a Tengu and I jumped through a wormhole and I got ganked by 2 Lokis and an Eris, I believe it was. So yeah, that was a big learning one for me, because one of the things that I had forgotten in my time away from the game was that if you come through a wormhole, it does like a ripple effect, so anyone on the other side of that wormhole would see someone coming through, even though you are cloaked when you come through a wormhole, just like any other gate and stuff. They can still see that ripple, they know you're there. So as soon as I come through it, basically a warp bubble come up, and as soon as I tried to, so I instantly moved and then recloaked my Tengu, and the Eris seen that and headed straight for me, and I couldn't move out of the way in time, and they get in within range, which decloaked me, which when that happened, 2 Lokis uncloaked and I didn't stand a chance. So it's back to the drawing board. That was the second time that I was killed, and both in the same night. So what I done was I decided to give it a day or two and fit out an Astero. Now this is where we started getting some stuff. We started making some changes to what we were doing. The main one being that I was letting my guard down because I was not seeing anyone in wormholes, basically. Whether that be that I was just getting into wormholes that no one was there, or everyone was cloaked up and whenever I was in the wormholes with them, I don't know. Maybe they seen my probes out and they were just like, listen, we're going to stay cloaked up and let him move on, do his thing. It could have been the case. I'm not too sure. So that, either way, that led me to letting my guard down. And it resulted in 2 deaths, which the Tengu, losing the Tengu was a wee bit, because it was like 300-400 million for that Tengu. And then obviously the buzzard's about 40 million, so, and then the loot that I had in it, so in one night I lost about, say, 400-500 million. But don't really care about that, all par for the course really. When I decided to go back in, what I done was I built an Astero, just because I'm sick of looking at buzzards, and I thought, you know what, an Astero would be a nice wee choice. And I seem to be able to do relic sites a lot better with an Astero than I can with a buzzard. Maybe that's a placebo thing and I'm just enjoying not being in a buzzard for a change. Who knows? One of the main stuff that I changed with this was, right, because we're doing this, it's going to be a case of I let my guard down too much for not seeing an awful lot of people, because even though I was in a wormhole, I got this safe feeling because I wasn't seeing anyone. So to counteract that, we're doing a nomad lifestyle, not just in wormholes. Okay, so high sec, low sec, null sec, wormholes, right? We're doing it all. We're not doing trick space, fuck that. That place scars me. We're not using filaments, we're not using anything like that. It's a case of we're just traveling. We're just going and seeing where it takes us. You know, jumped into a wormhole to begin with, right? We'll start off in a wormhole because the wormhole is working, leads you to low sec, null sec and stuff. Jumped into a wormhole. First hole, started doing some relic sites and everything. And whenever I was doing my save log off, I logged off with 44 million in the pocket, which was great, right? 44 million in the first night. Didn't really spend too much in the first night because, again, started it quite late at night, needed to get up for work the next morning. My time management needs some work, I understand. Then, when I logged in the second night after this, what I decided to do was I was scanning about and we were doing some wormhole stuff, looking for stuff, and then I came across a wormhole that led us to low-sec space, and I was like, right, here's the chance. We'll get out, we'll see some people. Even if we don't actually physically see them, but we see them in local, I will know that they're there. It will make me aware of their presence, so I'd definitely be a lot safer. So jumped out into low-sec, doing a lot of other things and getting some things sorted, doing some data analytics sites, and then it got to a stage where I was like, right, I know that I'm going to be going to null-sec. So what I wanted to do was, because once you go to null-sec, there's not really many places where I would have docking access, if any at all. So I was like, right, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop off my loot, which was only like 83 million. Dropped it off at a station in low-sec, and then jumped into null. I jumped into null, and whenever I did, I was in a system and area of space owned by Pandemic Horde, which they were an old rival alliance. So I was like, oh, it put me on edge a wee bit. It seemed like some people might have been looking for me because I kept uncloaking, sending out probes, and I was like, right, this just isn't. I get the feeling that even if I do find some data and relic sites in these few systems, they're going to be locking on to me pretty quickly, and they're going to be jumping me, and it was time to move on. I went off on a wee separate adventure, of which is going to be actually another video, but let's just say that I got about 50 odd million, and what I decided then was it was time to make my way back home. Because I needed to do stuff to prepare for, because this was kind of like a test run. So I needed to make my way back home to prepare for what I was actually going to be doing. And obviously that's what we're going to talk about, that and stuff. So on the way back in the Astero with about 53 million, and got to a low-sec that was being gate camped, and I got EMP'd and instant death. Sent straight back to Jita, lost everything. That was about 200 million down. Again though, it's a case of don't care about the ISK, more of a learning experience. Obviously there is certain systems that we need to avoid, and at this stage, because this was a test run, I don't mind losing pretty much everything that I had at that stage, because now I'm starting to learn what systems I need to avoid so that I don't get gate camped. Okay, Tama is one of them, Anonin is one of them, Rancer is one of them, Abazon is one of them. These are all low-sec systems that I need to avoid on my travels. Alright, even if that adds an extra 30-40 jumps onto it, that's 30-40 jumps of where we could get data and relic sites. And if we are doing like a nomad lifestyle, it's one of those things that we don't really care about adding extra time onto our journeys, because we're not looking to get anywhere fast. So on the way back, we'll get jumped and put to death basically, and that's how it ended. Now, like I says, learning experience, massive learning experience. I let my guard down too easily when I go a certain amount of time without seeing people. I really need Relic Analyzer 2 before I start my proper journey, and there's definitely systems that I need to avoid. That's all things that I've learnt in this that I will be planning and making sure that I'm well aware of for going into the next and proper, because this was like a trial run. So for going into the actual nomad lifestyle that I'm planning, after the preparations are done, we'll get on our way, and we'll take you along with us for that. But that was it. That was the trial run of a nomad lifestyle. Learning experience. We lost in the guts of maybe 600 million, give or take, and we got about 100 million back. Right. In total, massive loss, but massive gain in the terms of knowing what to do and not letting my guard down and stuff like that. So massive gain in that regard. So overall, I would consider it a win. And I think the Astero is the ship to go for with it, especially with the Relic Analyzer 2, because there was a lot of ISK that we lost out on just because null-sec, wormholes, relic analyzers, really you need to be on 2 for it to be able to get through it. So yeah, the 2 is about, as of recording this video, about 4 days away. So, you know, at some stage next week we'll probably be starting out into our proper journey. You know, but the other video about the kind of side adventure, we'll talk about that on the next one. But that is going to be for me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.